The Protestant Reformation was a significant religious movement began in the 16th century Europe. It started in 1517 on October the 31st when Martin Luther, a German monk, posted his 95 theses criticizing certain practices of the Roman Catholic Church. The posting of this thesis was a common academic practice that when you had a problem in academia or in the church, you posted your thesis and then the community could discuss them and come to a conclusion. But Martin Luther did not anticipate what happened after he posted this thesis. They brought up great controversy that ultimately led to his expulsion from the Church of Rome. And what was contained in this thesis? Martin Luther mainly raised the issue of justification by faith and the selling of indulgences, a certificate that was awarded to somebody so that if he paid more money, he could spend less time in purgatory. And so there were other issues in the church, such as the corruption of the priesthood. The church was in dark times, and these issues caused Martin Luther a great worry of heart. And when he raised these issues, as I said, he was expelled. And that act of expulsion led to what we have today as the Protestantism, because Luther left and began the Lutheran Church, and other reformers after him, such as Calvin and Zwingli, sought also to correct what they saw as errors in doctrine and practices that had developed over centuries in the churches that were in their nations. Calvin in Geneva and Zwingli in Switzerland. The Reformation is often summarized by 5 Latin phrases known as the 5 solas. The first sola is sola scriptura, which means scripture alone. This means that the Bible is the sole authority for Christian doctrine and practice. The second sola, sola fide, which means faith alone, translates to salvation comes through faith in Jesus Christ alone and not by any works. And third, sola gratia, grace alone. Salvation is a gift from God, not earned by human effort. And fourth, solus Christus, Christ alone. That Jesus is the only mediator between God and human beings. And fifth, soli Deo Gloria, that all glory is to God alone, that all glory belongs to God and not to human institutions or individuals. These principles challenged many established practices and beliefs of the time. There were several outcomes regarding the Reformation, and key among them, the birth of the Protestant churches. There came up churches such as the Lutheran, the Reformed churches, and later Baptist churches emerged. Secondly, there was a greater emphasis on biblical authority. The Bible became the final authority in matters of faith and practice. And thirdly, there were translations of the Bible. Scripture was translated into many common languages, making them accessible to all the people in Europe as it were in the times. And then there were changes in worship. Services began to be conducted in local languages compared to when they were conducted in Latin alone. Also, there was an emphasis on preaching. Expository preaching of Scripture once again gained prominence in church services. The Reformation still matters today as it did 517 years ago. First, it matters in regard to biblical literacy. The Reformation had its emphasis on Scripture, and it encourages us today to know and study the Bible for ourselves. There is also a need for personal faith. The Reformation reminds us of the importance of a personal relationship with God through Christ that transcends the institution of the church. There is also an emphasis on the understanding of salvation. The Reformation clarified the biblical teaching of salvation by grace through faith in Jesus Christ alone. And fourth, it matters to us in the area of church renewal. It serves as a model for a continual reform and alignment with biblical truth. Some people say that the church is always reforming, and this is true. Yeah, there is that emphasis on church renewal. Also, there is cultural impact. The Reformation in that time had a greater influence just beyond the church. It went into education, politics, and social structures.
We are saved
Our church has every concern with the Reformation. As Baptists, we are the heirs of the Reformation. Many of our core beliefs, such as the authority of Scripture, believers' baptism, and the priesthood of all believers, stem from Reformation principles. At Providence Baptist Church in Roiro, we strive to uphold these Reformation ideals. We emphasize the centrality of Scripture in our worship and teaching. Our commitment to expository preaching and congregational participation in worship reflects these Reformation values. Brethren, the Reformation reminds us to always test our beliefs and practices against Scripture, to rely on God's grace and to give Him all the glory. Let us continue in the spirit of the Reformers, always seeking to align our lives and our church with God's truth. May the Lord bless you.